I once met an old wise man at the top of a very large mountain, and I asked him, "What is the secret to true happiness in this life?" He answered, "Slab log."
This is your host, Philip Albritton. Welcome, everyone, to Slab Log Podcast, episode 25. We have been kind of absent the last month or so, trying to figure out what to do next. But I've got this thing I want to do, and I will consult with Lloyd. Lloyd, wait a minute. Where's Lloyd? Lloyd must have stepped out. Ronnie, you're going to have to go with me alone. Wait a minute. Where's Ronnie? Ronnie's gone too. I guess I'll have to do it by myself today. We're in the middle of spring, or I should say the beginning of spring. My azaleas are bursting out in bloom. Grass is starting to grow, and everything's getting warmer around here. South Alabama, it gets warm fast. But over the past year, this past season, when my bike wasn't being used very much, I took the opportunity to tear it down and do all the maintenance. And at the same time, I took all the plastic body parts. There were 6 pieces, actually. And I got them all sanded and cleaned up, sanded off, and repainted. I bought me a little spray painter, and I painted them myself. They look pretty good, actually. I've got everything put back together. I've changed the oil and changed the brake fluid, the coolant, and all that stuff to get it ready. And I've ridden a couple of times, and it's running a lot better since I took everything apart and checked all the wiring, put a new battery in it. My battery died, and so now it's ready to go again. One other thing that I've done here in the last couple of weeks is I bought me a new bicycle for exercise and enjoyment. I don't I haven't had a bicycle for a couple of years. My bike was stolen after I moved here to Atmore, right out from under my carport, and I'm just now bought a new bicycle. I got a giant Escape 3 model, and it's pretty cool. It's pretty neat bike, and I'm gonna enjoy riding it around the streets here in Atmore. I'm not a big bicycle rider. I just cruise around the streets here mostly, and up and down. I don't go too far from home with it. And this is the second year, 2021. This is also the second year that I'm going to be involved in the GTGA challenge. Let's see. GTGA, Grand Tour of Georgia. The Grand Tour of Georgia was organized some years ago as a benefit for a fellow up in Georgia. And Jim Weaver, the man that I knew, was influential in organizing the Grand Tour of Georgia. And he passed away a couple of years ago, but the Grand Tour of Georgia continues. And the person online who's involved in organizing it now is David Clark. And I've signed up again for this year, and they just this past weekend they had the first kickoff meeting at Heavy's Barbecue up in near Conyers, and I didn't make that. I was out of pocket this past weekend, so I didn't get to go. And looks like I'm going to be not able to participate here for another couple of weeks, about a month probably. I'm signed up to go help my daughter in Wyoming. My daughter has 3 daughters of her own. She's a very busy mom, and she's got a thing coming up that she needs help with, transportation-wise, a driver, more or less. And so I'm going to fly out there on the 13th, 14th, 15th, somewhere around here in the April, and then stay until May 12th. So I'll be out there helping her for almost a month. And I can't take my bike. I wish I could take the bike and ride around out there and go to Yellowstone, etc., but I can't do that. So I'll just have to go out there and help her and drive her car around and enjoy the cool weather and the mountains and visit with the granddaughters and my daughter and just have a good old time for about a month. But I can't ride my bike. Getting back to preparations for the bike, it's this. Most people here in South Alabama don't really store their bikes for the winter. They probably store them during the cold months, but they don't do anything particular other than just put it in the garage and not ride it for a while. But up in northern climes, the thing to do is to winterize your bike. And you don't sit on it, you don't ride it, you put it up on stand or whatever for some months or weeks to get through the wintertime. So that necessitates reviving it when you get ready to ride again. So that's happening about this time now. Maybe a few weeks ago, people started pulling them out of the mothballs and getting them ready to go. And that's what I want to touch on for this podcast here, is getting your bike ready for the riding season, which is nigh upon us. You have to check your fluids, replenish your fluids, or just replace your fluids, drain and replace. And that includes brake fluids, coolant, oils, final drive, grease, whatever you want to, whatever you think you need to replace. It's time to do that now, or probably you should have done it before then. Brakes, make sure your brakes are working good. Change out the brake fluid, of course, we just said, and adjust your brakes. Make sure your pads are, you got plenty of pads left. If not, replace those pads. You only got 2 wheels. You got to make sure nothing don't happen to one of them when you're riding. Lights, yeah, check your headlights. Carry an extra little bulb with you too when you're riding. But you got to check your lights, make sure your bright's still working, and your turn signals are working, all your switches are working, your driving lights, switches, and all that. Make sure everything is copacetic. So moving on to your clutch. Make sure your clutch is adjusted. Just check it, readjust it, just for make sure you know that it's the adjustment's right on it. Tires, tire pressure, of course, is important, and you should have already done this by now. But if you need new tires, you need to pull those old tires off and get new tires, or take it into the dealer or somewhere. Get you some new tire tread put on there. Like I said before, you only got 2 tires. You got to make sure they're working good. You ain't got a spare. You ain't got 3 others that can support you if one goes flat. The last item, which I'm going to try to get a friend of mine to talk to me on the phone and answer a question about. But that's your electronics, your battery, the source of all power on your motorcycle. Nowadays with computers, if your battery is low or weak, your computer will malfunction. That can make your brakes, your ABS not function right. It can make your lights not function right. It can make your starter not function at all. So the battery is important. My bike sat up too long prior to working on it over the fall and winter, and living here in South Alabama, just didn't ride it enough. I let it set too long, and it just eventually conked out on me. So I bought a new one, and I had put that in here just a couple months ago. I put that new battery in. Now let's go to a couple of guests here with the same hypothetical question about an electrical problem. My first caller is my friend Rob, who's a motorcycle mechanic, and we'll ask him. What I wanted to ask you about, Rob, it was the scenario that I'm wanting to pose a question about. Involves riding along. You are on this beautiful scenic ride, and you've left the main road. You're wandering around these roads, and you're just enjoying it. It's very nice. And you see a little pullover. You want to pull over and stop and take some pictures. And you pull over to the side, put your side stand down, turn the bike off, get off, take off your helmet, and start taking some pictures, and maybe go over to a tree and take a leak or something. And then you spend your little bit of time, and then you go to get back on the bike and turn the key on, and nothing. Actually, there's two scenarios. One scenario is you get a click, click, click. The other scenario is if nothing, you don't get anything. What should a person do who is, they know a little bit about their bike, but they're not a mechanic, you know? And the service station they passed last was like 5 miles back, you
know. Things like that have happened.
I know that's happened to me before.
What it is the battery itself. There's a connector between the cells.
Uh-huh.
Sometimes those just, there's crack in it, or it'll just break the connection.
Well, I know when the time mine went out, it was my starter. My starter had failed, but that's unlikely usually. But it's usually a battery problem. But if you pull out your cell phone to call for help and there's no signal, what, you just have to start walking, or are there some things?
Yeah.
What's the first thing you should check? You can access your battery maybe, and if you have some kind of, see if the cable's loose or something maybe.
Yeah, that happened on my bike. Just to turn it on, and you get clicking. It was the connection loosened up.
Yeah. That
little 10 millimeter bolt, and it's pretty common with the F800s.
Well, that can happen to anybody on any bike, I guess. But like if they're getting ready to start riding for the season, what's the best way to prevent that from happening?
It's probably what I got to do now is pull the bodywork off and check those connections. I put a stainless steel lock washer on it, and that seemed to delay it a bunch of years after that.
Oh yeah, under the nut that holds the battery cable.
Yeah. Yeah, when I got my bike, it happened, the starter wouldn't work. It would just click, and then it would start.
Mm-hmm.
Like the connection just made itself. And I took the bodywork off and looked at the battery, and it was loose, and I got really mad at the dealer because I thought somebody's so careless.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so I greased it and tightened it, and like a year later or so, it happened again. And then I said, "Wow, there's no lock washer on there." So I went through my stuff and I found a stainless steel one with a magnet. I put that on, and that seemed to fix it.
Yeah, that sounds like a good solution for that. I had an intermittent electrical problem the last couple of years, and I think I found it this past winter season that I had everything apart and painted my panels on my bike. I had to get a new battery because my other battery had just conked out. But when I put the new battery in and taking the old battery out, I realized that the connection, I can't remember if it's the negative or positive one, but the connection felt like it was tight, but it wasn't really connected to the nut underneath the battery cable. The thing you put your screw through and hold everything down.
Yeah.
The screw would tighten up. I mean, it was really tight, but then it was only tight at the top. If you start moving around, it jiggles loose. It wasn't really connecting very well with the nut at the bottom, and I'm wondering if that could have been my problem all along.
Yeah, sometimes you add more wires for accessories, and
yeah, that's what I had. That's the problem I had.
Yeah, and there's less threads engaged, so you need a longer bolt.
Well, I got the new battery now. I made sure it was it's screwed in there properly and correct and sound, and it runs good now. Yeah. But so your bike, how old is your bike now? It's probably the same age.
Yeah, it's 11 years old, going to be in June.
Yeah. No problems?
No, not really. Just light bulbs.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah. Well, I don't want to keep you. I know I just called you on the spur of the moment here, but I appreciate you answering my question. Maybe it'll help somebody in the dark here who's not, instead of just panicking and starting to run to the nearest intersection. Something like that. Yeah. But if nobody's with you, I ride alone a lot, and if there's nobody with you and something happens like that, the first thought that goes through your mind is panic. But anyway, I appreciate your help on this. I'll let you get back to what you're doing. And
well, I just woke up, so I was a little groggy.
Oh, okay. Well, maybe I can touch base with you here on another issue. Okay, let's ask Marvin Wilson, the same question.
Yeah.
Okay, what I'm going to do is pose you a question here, hypothetical question. What do you do if you're riding along and you're on a nice scenic road? It's a nice, beautiful day, and last gas station you passed was like 5 miles or so back, and you pull over to the side of the road to take some pictures off of a little pullout, and you take your pictures, maybe go take a leak behind a tree or something, and then you've rested,
Sure.
Walked around a little bit, you get back on the bike, put your kickstand up, turn on the switch, and the starter doesn't do anything. It might click, but it doesn't do anything. What do you do? What's the process going through your mind that you think you might want to do right then, besides pushing the bike off the cliff?
Yeah, well, I guess, really. I guess one thing I would probably do is check the battery terminals to make sure I've got good connection, or if they're not corroded, that sort of thing. See if they're tight, and try that and see if that made a difference. I'm not very technically oriented on these newer bikes nowadays, so I don't know what else I would do beyond that. I guess if your dash lights were working and everything. Um, I'd look to see if I was on a flat road in Florida and give up pushing it.
Yeah.
If I was on a hill in North Georgia, hopefully at the top of the hill, I would try and roll off of it. Now I guess there's a method called bump starting. I've never actually tried that, but where you get it rolling and turn the ignition on and touch the starter button at the same time as you're letting the clutch
Uh-huh.
out. I don't know, but I've heard that can be damaging to a bike as well. So I don't
That's
know
similar.
which is correct
That's
on that.
similar to like just a push start, right? Or
Yeah, and I've actually experienced a dead battery out in South Georgia. Actually, coming back from a camping trip to the Okefenokee Swamp, and had a friend of ours, mutual friend, CA, with me. Everybody else had split and gone different ways, but CA and I were riding together, and I think first happened, and fortunately, when we were stopped at a restaurant, Taco Bell or something for lunch, and went out and the bike wouldn't start. And CA's got a few years on us. He tried to push me and soon gave up. The GS is a great bike, but it's like pushing a brick around when
yeah,
the starter
yeah.
starter
I
doesn't
can't
work.
imagine trying to
But
push yourself off and then hop on if it starts, that kind of thing.
yeah, well, yeah, it'd be terrible if you were by yourself. I don't know how you could possibly do it. Fortunately, in this particular case, a young man was walking by, and CA grabbed him, and he pushed me off. And the rest of the way home, we made sure we were at a gas station on a hill. But by yourself, I have no clue as to what I would do.
But you're saying if you're on a hill, you could get rolling down a hill and do a bump start.
Right. I think you could probably certainly be like in second or third gear. I don't know if fourth is too high, but certainly not in first gear. I don't think with shaft drive. I think
Yeah.
that presents other problems as well. It kind of seems to. I don't know if this is true or not, but it just kind of seems to eat up any momentum you have going through the differential and all that stuff. But it would be a dreary situation by yourself.
Yeah, I remember that time we were camping and your friend, what was his name? Dennis. That had the battery die because he left his seat switch on or something.
Right, definitely. Yeah, I remember that too.
But,
Somewhere along the way, I bought. This is the solution to all this: is to buy a little set of miniature motorcycle jumper cables, and you'll never have a problem. It's like carrying an umbrella; it won't rain. So
yeah,
if you have those
yeah,
jumper cables in your side cases, you're not going to have a dead battery for
yeah. Well, my
forever.
brother carries one of those. It's like an electric box. It's almost like a big battery, almost the size of a battery.
Sure.
And
That's a great
you can
idea.
hook that up, and you don't need another car. It's got the power right in it. But it's so
Yeah,
big, it's so huge. It would take up one whole saddlebag, to carry that thing.
Right. That's interesting. That's a good idea. I wouldn't have those been miniaturized in any way to be smaller.
I don't know. He's got one in his car and one in his wife's car in case they have a dead battery. But
and these batteries, they don't really seem to ever give any pre-warning that they're going south. It's just like, bam, there it is, and you're out of electrical power.
Yeah, that's right. Well, gee, yeah. Well, the first response I've had in those situations, I just panic. I just panic all of a sudden. I just want to run screaming. Yeah.
Well, hopefully there's some. Yeah, I didn't think about the panic part, but I've done that as well. Hopefully there's some little country fella in a old Ford or Chevrolet pickup passing by that has some jumper cables or a piece of rope he can tow you to the next gas station or something. But a lot of times the locals have cell service when you
Oh
don't.
yeah.
Just
Yeah.
they're for their part of the country, they've got a phone that works, but it's often the case that your own cell phone doesn't work. So.
Yeah, exactly. And it could not be the battery; it could be something else.
Yeah, true. Yeah, exactly. What other things would cause a no start? Well, we have a friend that had a starter
And if
button.
you're in a group, you could just phase 3 them and take off.
That's it. That's the perfect scenario for those that don't have any trouble. They're enjoying their day and vacation. They can't hang around to help some guy that has a bad starter button. Sheesh, what's the logic in that? So,
well, I was at one of those rallies, the Georgia Mountain Rally, before they went over to the lake. That old place they had that. And I was going to go home on Saturday night. I ate dinner and then went out there and had everything packed, and I put it on the bike. I was going to head back to Woodstock, and that happened to me. I got on. I heard it go click, and then it was nothing after that. And it wasn't the battery. We tried pushing it off. Of course, there's a bunch of people out there. We tried pushing it. It wouldn't work. We tried jumping it. It didn't work. And so I called my wife. At the time, she brought my truck, and we put it on the truck and took it home.
Okay.
But I found out later it was the starter. I had just had the starter rebuilt, and they didn't replace these plastic bushings correctly in there. And one of them just broke. It was a little plastic thing. It just broke, and when that broke, I mean, there's no starter. It's dead.
Yeah. So. Well, recently, I mean, I've got the 2014, the newer water cooled GS, and I've gotten into the habit of just leaving it on the battery tender because I guess my assumption that there's something draining electricity off of that battery, even when it's off. I don't know if that's correct or not, but anyway, I went without hooking the battery up for a week or two, and went to get on it to go for a ride, and it just barely turned over. And with fuel injection and all, it normally just fires right up. And, but I tried a couple times and was about ready to give up, and I turned the throttle just a little bit, and I guess that did something, and it fired off, and then I rode it the rest of the day. It was quite some time to my next stop, so I didn't was able to build the charge back up, and didn't have that problem anymore the rest of the day or since. But I've got to be careful about keeping it on the battery charger if I'm not riding for a while, I guess.
Well,
that's kind of a sick sound,
The real solution to this question is and the moral of the story is always ride with somebody.
Now, does that include your wife or girlfriend as a passenger and make them
yeah, you have somebody with you that can at least push,
Well, that's funny. Yeah, you're exactly right. Ride in twos or more, and you have a lot more versatility in the event of a mechanical problem, or God forbid any other kind of problems.
If you're stuck waiting for a wrecker or something, you got somebody to stand around and talk to for a while.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah, we've been all through that, haven't we?
Yeah. Well, thanks, Marvin, for willingness to answer me there on the spur of the moment, my hypothetical question. And ladies and gentlemen, there you have it, two bona fide authorities on electrical battery problems and management of stress and panic. So let's move on.